This is the Real Digital Transformation podcast series, empowering technology and business professionals to succeed with digital transformation. Now, here's your host, best-selling author Thomas Earl.
Hi, this is Thomas Earl, and welcome to another episode of the Real Digital Transformation podcast series. Today I have with me Dr. Alex Heublein, President of the U.S. branch of Netshurit, and Alex will be sharing with us his insights and guidance specifically regarding cyber threats and cybersecurity practices in relation to digital transformation initiatives, the adoption of new digital technology innovations, and the types of threats and vulnerabilities that adopting digital technology and carrying out digital transformations may inadvertently result in, and what we should be aware of. Dr. Alex Heublein, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me, Thomas. This is great.
Super. So where should we begin? If you were to advise organizations now, whether they're mid-sized, larger organizations, undergoing digital transformations, adopting whatever they feel is relevant to furthering their business interests in a digital world, what would you advise them to pay the most attention to when it comes to cybersecurity?
Where to start, right? There's right. There's so many aspects of this, right? Well, maybe it's worth talking a little bit about digital transformation. And you and I both know is one of those very overloaded terms these days. It means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But I think there's sort of three areas that we look at. One of them is, when you're introducing new technologies into your business, a lot of times that involves kind of opening up systems and processes that maybe you haven't opened up to the rest of the world. And so that can be in the form of new systems that need to talk to one another and inadvertently or almost guaranteed you're going to end up having some sort of API access into systems that maybe you haven't had access before. So looking at it from sort of an endpoint standpoint, a lot of people look at it just from the perspective of, well, I need to secure the infrastructure. I need to make sure that the systems themselves are secure. But as you open up more and more systems via APIs or other mechanisms, you run into some challenges there. So I think that's kind of the first area, is really understanding what you're exposing that maybe you haven't exposed to in the past to external callers. So you see a lot of this manifesting itself in a lot of different ways, but being able to put that layer in place that really looks not just at how do I secure the infrastructure, but really am I making sure that I'm securing the access points, the APIs into these systems in the right way. That can be a critical success factor. So I think that's sort of one area. The second area that we see, and at Netshurit, we spend a lot of time with what I'll call small and medium businesses, businesses anywhere from, let's say, 25 users or so, or people within the company to maybe 2,500. And what we've seen, interestingly, is as some of these smaller and medium businesses really look to adopt new technologies, lately it's been a huge emphasis on AI technologies. They're kind of opening up a lot of data to these AI systems. So if you think about the way that we've looked at these systems and data in the past, we were largely looking at what I'll call structured data. Things in databases, things that were highly structured, had very formalized mechanisms for accessing them. But now we're able to go in and help organizations reason across both their structured data, but all of the unstructured data that they have in their organizations. And these can be documents, they can be spreadsheets, they can be PDFs, they can be diagrams and drawings and schematics and things like that. So we're looking at it from a completely different angle now. It's not just that we're looking at structured data, but the ability of a lot of the large language models to reason across unstructured data is a huge factor as well. So being able to understand who's accessing what controls we have on those unstructured data elements. And for a lot of businesses, that represents, Thomas, probably 80 or 90% of all the data that they have that they use for business purposes. It's not just the stuff in your accounting systems. It's not just the things that are in sort of formal structured databases. It's a ton of documents. And that opens up an entirely new realm of access control that you really have to think about. So that's an area that we spend a lot of time with our customers focusing on. And it's not just about securing the data, it's also making sure that you've got the right privacy controls in place. And by that, I mean, do the right people within your organization or outside of your organization have access to just the data that they need to have access to, and you don't inadvertently open up that data to people that really don't they don't need to have access to it, and they probably shouldn't have access to it. So that's a big area that we're seeing. And then sort of the third area that we've really seen recently, I'd say just in the last, let's call it 4 or 5 years, particularly in the small and medium business world, I think this has always been a problem for larger enterprises. But if you think about cybersecurity, to the hackers, it's an economic game. How much effort am I going to have to expend to go get some data or some access that I don't have? And then how can I monetize that? How can I turn that into something that is actionable and something that I can actually produce money out of? And so in the past, it just, for a lot of small and medium businesses, it just wasn't worth going after them, candidly. The cost benefit analysis was, it's going to take me a fair bit of cost to go do this. The returns I'm going to get out of this are going to be fairly minimal. But now what we're seeing is with a lot of the bad actors out there, AI is actually proving to be a huge benefit, and it's reducing the cost that it takes to go after smaller businesses and medium-sized enterprise businesses. So the kind of the cost bar of going after some of these things has been lowered, and so now it makes it far more attractive to go after not just large corporations or high net worth individuals, but now being able to go after some of these smaller businesses with ransomware attacks that honestly for a small business can be an existential threat to the business itself. So I'm seeing a lot of different aspects to it, but those are sort of the three main areas that kind of jumped out at me lately.
Interesting. So I've been making notes while you've been going through this. So going back to the first area that you described about securing the endpoints, securing the APIs. So prior to digital transformation, traditionally our systems, our legacy systems had APIs, they had their own endpoints. Sometimes they were remotely accessed. What's different now in terms of cybersecurity in relation to securing APIs and endpoints? What are the new threats, or how are the threats different in that context?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of differences. One is that a lot of those systems and APIs were designed for what I'll call internal access, right? And now over the last 10, 15 years, we've opened up those systems more to the external world. So now instead of trusted people that are within my organization checking supply and inventory levels, now I've opened up a lot of that data to, for instance, my downstream supply chain partners. All right, so I've opened up a lot of these systems to more external entities. So I think that's one difference. And then I think the second difference is just the scale at which we're doing these things. If you're not living in this hyper interconnected world as a business, it's very difficult to do business these days. So being able to open up these systems, but do it in a very secure way. And we've seen the rise of API managers. The ability not just to secure these APIs, but really put an abstraction layer in front of them that gives you control. It gives you access controls, authorization, authentication, but also logging and throttling and performance management of those APIs. that we've seen a big rise just in the last 10 years of companies really saying, okay, we have to put formal API managers in front of these systems, not just to secure them, but to make sure that we can control the level of access that we're giving to people and that the right people are accessing the right information at the right time. Now, you throw AI into it, where now I'm building access into systems that may have access to unstructured data. That just compounds the problem. So it's really important to think through not just the structured data that I have sort of formal APIs in place for, but now I'm using AI to reason across unstructured data as well. And sometimes that unstructured data can be in a lot of different places. So there's huge benefits that we can see from this, but making sure that we've got it secure, making sure that we've got the right people accessing the right information at the right time, whether it's structured or unstructured data, I think that's a big difference. And that's really just come up in the last 3 or 4 years.
Which leads to your second point about the increased quantity of unstructured data that many organizations have to put out there to train their AI systems, to support what their AI systems do in production. That new unstructured data that we are possibly exposing, what is the typical motivation for someone to want to have access to that? What have you seen businesses put out there that could, if accessed, by bad actors, what type of information could then be used against the business or could be stolen in an unstructured format, as opposed to the traditional structured corporate data that many see as being most valuable, the accounting data, the business data, the product data, specifications, all that's usually structured. What is the potential value that others see in accessing unstructured data?
Well, I mean, I'll give you an example of this, right? So we've worked with various customers on initiatives. So as a specific example, to be able to go back and look at projects that they've done for their customers in the past. So all of the proposals that they did, all of the cost estimation that they did, all of the schematics, all of the designs that they did for past customers. And what they really want to be able to do is reason across not just the structured data, not just the financial data that went into those projects, but all the other data. And the reason they want to do that is they want to be able to say, well, we've done hundreds of projects in the past. Now we'd like to go do a proposal or put out a bid to go do a new project. We'd like to be able to pull in data from these past projects to accelerate the process of creating proposals, creating cost estimates, et cetera. So now we're exposing data that was, literally sitting on a file server somewhere. Now we're putting AI in front of that and having AI reason across, large language models reason across that data. It opens it up in a new way. So we have to be very, very careful that we secure not just that structured financial information, for instance, but all of the document related information that we're coming across. Because if I'm a bad actor, I can go in and see projects that may be currently underway. I can get information about the critical infrastructure, et cetera. So there's a lot of reasons they may want to see some of this unstructured data, because it goes beyond what they could access previously. So that's a big challenge in terms of designing these systems and implementing these systems in a way that secures the entire back end.
Is it any more difficult to secure unstructured data compared to structured data, just in terms of how massive it can be and how it can be comprised of content from diverse data sources? Are there different cybersecurity practices for securing that than structured data, or is it pretty much the same?
Well, I think it's not so much that it's different. It's just a different way of thinking about it, right? So for instance, I may have unstructured data all over my enterprise. I might have it in SharePoint. I might have it in file servers. I may have it in other systems. So now instead of just worrying about okay, I need to lock down this one set of systems. Now I've got to really depend upon the security mechanisms that are built into and the authorization and access controls that are built into those underlying systems. So I don't think the sort of technology to secure that has changed, but when you're designing applications and you're building these things, now I've got to worry about a tremendously larger number of potential sources for that data. So again, I don't think the underlying security posture and technologies that we use to secure those things have changed. But now we have to really think about, wow, there are so many more potential sources. Now I'm depending on a bunch of different access control mechanisms that give access to that data. And the people building those applications have to be very cognizant of what they're doing and the fact that they're accessing far more data sources than they have traditionally in the past.
Mm-hmm. And one more thing about that, I'm just curious. So given that there can be so much more of that data, let's say we had 1 gig of structured data previously, but now we bring in a terabyte or two of unstructured data that we have to secure in addition to our 1 gig of regular structured corporate data. How much does that impact your cybersecurity budget? Is that just a matter of adding some more access control and encryption, or does that significantly have an impact on the overall financial side?
I think it can have an impact on the financial side, but I think more of it is to get, for instance, to get large language models to reason across very large amounts of unstructured data. I can't just point them at the documents and say, okay, have fun, go at it, right? A lot of times I need to ingest a lot of that data, and then I need to get that data into an intermediate format, right? So I might vectorize that data and store it in a vector database. As an interim step, right? So that lets me not only look across the data, but I can establish relationships between the data and the different data points and documents that I have. So in a lot of cases, when we're reasoning across very large amounts of unstructured data, yes, there are additional ingestion costs, and I may need to put some additional systems into place to be able to do that. And then I've got to make sure those systems are secured. So it definitely can increase your cybersecurity costs, but I think it really comes down to making sure that you understand how these systems work and the way that I'm ingesting the data into these systems. That's actually probably a bigger concern than just securing the data itself in its sort of native at rest type of format.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And to your third point about the possibility now for smaller businesses, medium-sized businesses to be targeted, um, what would these businesses won't have the same type of budget or capability of establishing comprehensive cybersecurity infrastructure to protect themselves as larger corporations do. What would your advice be to those businesses to best protect themselves from that threat?
Well, I think there's a couple of pieces to it, Thomas. I mean, one of them is making sure that you're working with an IT partner that really understands the intricacies of doing this at a smaller scale. And how to do it cost effectively. Back to your point about the increased costs. Yes, we think that small and medium businesses are going to be spending more on cybersecurity today than they were 5 years ago. I don't think the costs are monumentally higher, but they're certainly higher. But I think, choosing a partner that really understands how to do this for small and medium businesses, I think that's absolutely critical. And then the second thing that we see a lot of is we see a reluctance to do that. I don't think a lot of businesses are in the right mindset at this point. They think, well, who's going to go after my little business? I mean, we get that a lot. And again, traditionally, they probably didn't have a huge amount to worry about, just statistically. But what we've seen is just a massive, massive rise over the last 4 or 5 years in ransomware attacks, in particular on small and medium businesses. So I think it's really a matter of prioritizing things and saying, look, there's still a small chance that this will happen. It's a relatively small chance, but if it does happen, it could put my company completely out of business. So it's getting people into the mindset of looking at this from a risk standpoint and what the potential outcomes could be. That's where we actually struggle quite a bit with some of our customers to show them, hey, this isn't a theoretical exercise. This isn't something that could happen. If you let it go long enough, it almost assuredly will happen to you. Getting them into that mindset that they have to take this very seriously, and that the game has changed over the last few years. What worked for you five years ago will no longer work for you now. So we've got to really up your game in terms of cybersecurity, even if you're a small and medium business.
Which leads us to what you do with Netshurit. Alex, why don't you elaborate on what Netshurit is about and the products and services that you offer before we conclude?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're an IT managed service provider, but we go beyond what you would traditionally think of in terms of an IT managed service provider. So we provide sort of support and we run IT operations for small and medium businesses. But then we have a whole suite of cybersecurity offerings called Netshurit Secure that have really focused on what I just talked about, right? It's taking that cybersecurity into the sort of modern era where there are many, many more opportunities for hackers to get into your systems. And then we take that even a step further. We have a service called InnovateX, which actually helps our customers in the small and medium business world take advantage of emerging AI technologies like some of the advanced large language models to very quickly deliver business value to them in a very, very cost-effective way. So we look at it from the standpoint, it's almost like building a house. The managed security the managed services that we provide, the managed IT services, those are really the foundation. The Netshurit Secure kind of goes on top of that and sort of secures that foundation. And then that allows our customers to actually go out and compete with their larger competitors by implementing technologies that traditionally have been unaffordable to small and medium businesses. So we try to kind of look at it as a stack, get the foundation right, secure the foundation, and then that enables you to go out and build things on top of that foundation that's secure, that can drive business value and help your organization compete with larger competitors that maybe have more money to spend on this.
Awesome. Well, Alex, thank you so much for your time today and for your insights. I think these are all highly relevant points that you made that will become increasingly important over time. So thanks again.
Thank you as well, Thomas.
Thank you for listening. Follow Thomas on LinkedIn